there, this is Ascended Glitch Cat with another round of videos about Saving Paldea. I'm going to give my own take on what Pokemon Scarlet and Violet might have looked like if some of the major logic fails weren't there. If you followed my earlier videos, it might feel like I'm repeating some stuff, but I promise the story's coming. Today we're looking at what would happen if Penny decided to drop Operation Starfall, which, let's face it, was not her brightest idea. As per Team Star's code, they've still got to battle Juliana if she decides to challenge them. That's got to be scary for the bosses, knowing they can never really let their guard down. And Penny knows all too well how fear can send standards flying out the window. So for this reimagining, she's going to reveal herself to her friends early. In fact, let's place her at the Fairy Squad base, having already introduced herself to Ortega. Juliana arrives, and she's feeling pretty confident. The Segan Squad and the Shadar Squad base were trio wins for her. She raids the Rukba Squad base as usual, but she can't quite take Ortega's team and has to leave. Juliana is clearly unhappy about this loss, which means she's going to train hard to make up for it, and she'll definitely challenge Team Star again. Ortega calls over Giacomo, who gets introduced to Penny, and suggests they warn the other bosses to bolster their defenses. Aerie will probably be okay, but Atticus might be in trouble. He's the next obvious target, and they just basically sent the Academy's most promising new student against him. Maybe Aerie can send him some reinforcements. He pulls out his phone to call her. This is when Penny knows for sure that Operation Starfall has to go, and she thinks she knows how to do it. She can't tell them to ignore the code, but what if they change it? Not a bad idea, but wouldn't it sound better coming from the guy who wrote the code to begin with? Penny tells Ortega to wait. First, they should discuss the proposed adjustment to Team Star's code with the group as a whole. Ortega pauses with his thumb over the screen. His eyes search Penny's face in confusion. He has no clue what she's talking about, and he tells her so. This isn't the time to debate the code. Atticus needs as much time as possible to prepare. Penny backtracks, explaining in a quieter tone how Giacomo worked really hard on this proposal, and how it's perfect for exactly this type of situation. Giacomo doesn't remember writing anything, and the look on his face makes it obvious. If Penny were the type to elbow people so they'd follow along, she might be taking a jab at Giacomo in this moment. Instead, she locks eyes with him, mentally begging him to infer her meaning. Eventually, something clicks. Giacomo laughs and slaps himself in the forehead. Of course, he wrote this addendum thing. He calls it the emergency situation addendum, right? Penny nods and adds how it was especially insightful of him to add the part about how if a crew boss is forced to step down, the crew can remain assembled until they've concluded all necessary business. Giacomo gives a slow nod. Well, the Academy sure could use Team Star right now. That seems like necessary business. Penny agrees and turns to Ortega. Of course, nothing Giacomo wrote is part of the actual code until they vote on it. So they need to get all the bosses together as soon as possible. Ortega rolls his eyes. Aerie and Atticus are never going to buy this. It sounds like they're a bunch of cowards trying to do damage control before they lose. But Penny doesn't care what it sounds like. Team Star has 5 bosses left, including her. As long as they have 3 votes, the addendum can go into effect. Giacomo debates over this, searching for a loophole. Juliana ran off before he could physically hand her his badge, but she sure devastated his base as much as she did Mella's. Surely they've both lost their boss status by some spirit of the definition. But if Penny can get by on a technicality, she will. It's not her only problem. The code says a consensus is not required, but strongly preferred. Neither Giacomo nor Ortega are happy about the idea of outvoting their fellow bosses, and Penny needs both of them backing her up. What good is a leader if she can't take decisive action in a crisis? Team Star can't afford to keep diverting resources just to keep Juliana at bay. Giacomo looks thoughtful about this. There's that Arvin kid Juliana is friends with. If they can reason with him, maybe he can get Juliana to back down. It's not a bad thought, Penny admits, but it's also a big if, and she's had enough uncertainty for the day. She looks to Ortega. He seems hesitant at first, but he finally sighs and pulls up the call list for Team Star's leaders. Of course, he'd love for Arvin to help them too, but it'd be stupid to stake their future on crazy odds like that. He taps Aerie and Atticus's names, starting a 3-way call. The group moves to Ortega's tent, where he switches the call over to speaker mode and sets the phone down in the middle of his desk. He's barely gotten in a hello before Aerie demands updates on everything. Her scouts have naturally reported the assault on the ferry crew's base, and she's been on edge ever since. Are all the members safe? Does anyone need any extra training? Ortega gives a rundown of his battle with Juliana, reassuring everyone that he's chased her off and the badge is still his. Aerie cheers at this news. Atticus gives a hearty clap, noting that when the Navi squad received word of Ortega's encampment under siege, it required greatest fortitude not to hasten to his aid. Ortega chuckles and tells Atticus he's lucky he didn't show up. What would that have looked like to the ferry crew? Him rushing in here like Ortega can't handle himself, especially when his Pokemon are the stronger ones. Atticus points out that he, not Ortega, took victory in their last bout. Because you trained poison types and I trained fairy types, Ortega protests, much to the amusement of all involved. Penny tries to hold on to this happy moment before they have to move to more serious matters. Atticus laughing is a rare sound. His odd way of speaking proved a barrier when they first formed Team Star, but by now Penny and the others have grown used to it. Atticus has never been one to keep up to date on the latest trends, even in the world of fashion. He said as much on that fateful night during what Penny thought would be her last phone call with her friends. It's the one and only time she heard him ease off the centuries-old vernacular. To be forthright, I feel as if I am always a step behind, as if everyone else is speaking a different language. What if I say something and it comes across wrong, due to some new slang or reference I don't follow? Or what if someone misreads me and I make them upset or angry? That is why I decided when I came to school, I would lean on my interest in history. That is to say, I would speak in a way that wasn't modern to anyone. Words frozen in time with their old definitions, not tied to any current references or hidden meanings, at least until I got to know someone and could trust they wouldn't judge me for my interests. It's this moment that nearly broke Penny's resolve to disband the group, nearly being the key word. She felt so sure back then that if she really cared about Atticus as a friend, she'd get him back to school no matter what. Now, she sees things in an entirely new perspective. At the very least, she appreciates that school is not the be-all, end-all of the universe. "It's good to hear your voices again," she says by way of announcing herself. Several seconds of silence tick by as Aerie and Atticus process what they just heard. Then Aerie gasps and demands to know if the big boss is there with Giacomo and Ortega right now. Giacomo confirms that yes, she is here, and her name is Penny. Atticus cries out with delight, "Verily, 'tis a joyous occasion, but pray tell, what circumstance has necessitated thy reemergence, Lady Penny?" Penny flushes, grateful that this isn't a video call, and asks not to be called that. Atticus offers his apologies. Penny collects herself and lays out the proposed changes to Team Star's code. Not changes made out of preference, she emphasizes, but made out of necessity. With as important as their work is, they can't afford for some random student to come in and dismantle everything with a few lucky battles. The group has to be permitted to stay together after defeat. 2 of their bases going down has already reduced their resources. A 3rd squad dispersing would be a disaster. While Aerie listens intently with a lot of and okays, Atticus remains silent the entire time. Not completely out of character for someone from a family of ninjas, but usually the quieter Atticus gets about a topic, the less he approves. When Penny finishes, she asks the group for their opinions. The silence over the phone lingers for several moments. The screen clearly shows the call hasn't ended and the signal is clear, but the tent feels smaller and more suffocating. To Penny's great relief, Aerie finally speaks up. She does understand where Penny is coming from, but she sure doesn't like it. Necessary business can mean anything. They're basically writing a rule that says, if we lose, just go on like we didn't. Penny can't argue her point, which makes Atticus speak up too. "The whole of this proposal reeks with the stench of cowardice. Acceptance would be tantamount to spitting in the face of my noble heritage." Aerie cuts him off. While it's true she doesn't like it, that doesn't mean she'll vote against it. Atticus stammers at this. "Have thy senses taken leave of thee?" "My senses are right here, Atticus. We have to face facts. Our home is more important than our pride." Ortega leans towards the speaker. "I'm in the same boat as Aerie. We have an enemy, and she isn't backing down. This is our best option." "Forgive my reluctance to join thee in thy hypothetical water-bound vessel." Penny hugs herself. Everyone's voices are getting clipped and agitated. How were they such a cohesive unit before, and now when they try to get down to business, it turns to snapping at each other? Because that's what a crisis does, she reminds herself. It stresses people out, her included. Giacomo, always the peacekeeper, cuts in. "Hey, seems pretty clear we need to debate this. Let's meet in person at the Rukba Squad's base. Ari is fine with this. Atticus gives a much longer pause, but likewise agrees. Now they just have to wait for me to come up with part 2. That's all for now. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll have the follow-up posted as soon as I can, but I'm also working on a fun what-if about the chaos of Paldean picnics. A quick shout-out to Six Studios for helping with all this pixel art. In other news, this channel has broken 100 subscribers, which is not really something I thought would happen when it started. Thank you so much, and if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the button and stuff. And until next time, happy reading and happy training.